I never imagined a simple family vacation could turn into a nightmare that would haunt me for the rest of my life. The woods, they take everything if you're not careful. It was a crisp October morning when we left the city behind. The highway stretched before us like a ribbon of gray, bordered by endless forests that seemed to lean toward us as we drove. My wife, Laura, was humming along to some soft music on the car radio, a cup of coffee in her hand. Our son, Ryan, was excited, pointing at the trees, while Maya clutched her little stuffed bunny. We were happy. We were innocent. We didn't know the woods were waiting. As we drove deeper, the sun disappeared behind thick clouds and the forest grew darker, almost as if it were swallowing the road. I felt a strange chill crawl down my spine, but I brushed it off. "Are we there yet?" Ryan asked, his voice breaking the uneasy silence. "Almost, buddy," I replied, trying to sound reassuring, though my gut told me something was off. The trees pressed closer to the road. Shadows stretched long and twisted across the asphalt. I glanced in the rearview mirror. Something seemed to flicker between the trunks. An illusion, I told myself. Maya yawned, resting her head against the car window. Her small hand pressed against the glass, tracing the blurry shapes of the forest. I reached back to brush her hair, trying to ignore the creeping dread that had settled over me. The radio crackled. A faint, distorted sound of music played, cutting in and out like the forest itself was listening. Laura smiled at me, sensing my unease. "Don't worry, it's just the signal. We'll be there soon." But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching, waiting. The highway ended, giving way to a narrow dirt path that twisted between dense trees. "Here we go," I muttered, gripping the wheel tighter as the forest seemed to close in around us. A sudden gust of wind rattled the car, making the branches scrape against the windows. Ryan laughed, unaware of the ominous feeling that hung over us. "Cool! Look at that tree, Daddy!" I forced a smile, nodding, though my eyes darted to every shadow, every movement in the corner of the forest. The path narrowed even more, turning into what felt like a tunnel of trees. The daylight dimmed, and the air grew cold and heavy. Then, without warning, the car hit a small bump, and I felt the tires skid slightly on loose gravel. "Whoa!" Ryan shouted, gripping the seat. I corrected the wheel, heart pounding. And that's when I heard it, a faint whisper carried by the wind, almost like a child calling my name. I froze. "Did you hear that?" I asked, voice barely above a whisper. Laura looked at me puzzled. "Hear what?" "Nothing, just the rustling leaves and the hum of the engine." I shook my head, trying to convince myself it was nothing. But deep down, I knew the woods had already started their game. And that's how it began. Our perfect family vacation, slowly turning into a nightmare we could never escape. By the time we reached the cabin, the sky was a pale gray. Clouds hung low, heavy with the threat of rain. The cabin was tucked into a small clearing, surrounded by towering pines that swayed gently, whispering secrets in the wind. Ryan bolted from the car the moment we parked. "Come on, Dad, look at this place!" I chuckled, carrying the luggage inside. Laura and Maya followed, and the cabin welcomed us with its rustic charm. Wooden beams, a small fireplace, and the faint smell of cedar. Outside, the trees seemed to stretch endlessly. The forest didn't just surround the cabin, it pressed close, as if it was waiting. After unpacking, Ryan was already exploring the yard, climbing over rocks and peering into the shadows beneath the trees. Maya held Laura's hand, hesitant but curious, asking a million questions about the birds, the bugs, and the distant rustle of leaves. I watched Ryan run ahead, calling back every few moments, his voice full of joy. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the ground, I suggested a short hike to the nearby stream. Ryan insisted he knew the way. "Dad, I can lead. I know the path better than anyone." His eyes were bright, almost daring me to say no. I sighed and let him, taking Maya's hand firmly. "All right, but stay close," I warned. The trail started easy enough, soft dirt underfoot, the occasional rock jutting out. Ryan ran ahead, laughing, his small figure weaving between the trees. Maya's tiny feet shuffled beside me, and I held her hand tightly, more for my own reassurance than hers. But as we walked, the forest began to change. Shadows grew longer, and the mist rolled in like a silent tide, curling around tree trunks, clinging to branches, and creeping along the ground. The air grew damp and cold, the scent of wet earth and decaying leaves thick in my nose. I called out to Ryan when he ran ahead again, but no answer came. At first, I thought he was hiding, playing some game, but as I reached the last bend where I had seen him, he wasn't there. "Ryan!" My voice cracked. "Where's brother?" Squeezed my hand, her eyes wide. Panic surged through me like ice. I ran ahead, scanning the fog. Every tree looked the same, every shadow seemed alive. Then, faintly, I heard it, a soft giggle, too hollow, too distant to be just Ryan. My heart hammered. "Ryan! Answer me!" The sound vanished. Only the wind remained. Minutes, or was it hours, passed. The forest swallowed my shouts, twisting them into echoes that came back distorted, like the trees themselves were mocking me. I ran, calling, stumbling over roots and rocks, and each step felt like wading through invisible chains. Maya clung to me, trembling silently, too scared to speak. Then I found it. Ryan's small toy car crushed under a wet branch. My stomach twisted, bile rising. Too late. The toy car lay crushed beneath the damp leaves, a tiny symbol of the nightmare that had just begun. My hands shook as I picked it up, gripping it too tightly, trying to keep myself from collapsing. Maya clung to my side, her small fingers digging into mine. Her eyes were wide, unblinking, staring into the mist. "Daddy, where's brother?" she whispered, her voice trembling. I didn't have an answer. I didn't want to admit to her, or to myself, that he might already be gone. My chest tightened as I shouted his name again. "Ryan! Ryan! Come on, buddy! Answer me!" The forest swallowed my words. Mist curled around the trees like ghostly fingers, and every shadow seemed alive. Twigs snapped somewhere behind me, but when I turned, no one was there. The wind carried whispers that weren't wind. My heart raced. I had to keep moving. I couldn't panic, not yet, not when Ryan might still be nearby. I gripped Maya's hand and started deeper into the forest, calling his name again and again. The trees grew taller, their branches knotting together like skeletal arms, blocking the dim light from the sky. Each step I took felt like wading through invisible chains. Time lost meaning. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. My legs ached, my throat was raw, and my voice shook. Every shadow became a threat, a rustle in the underbrush, a distant snapping of a branch. My mind imagined Ryan being dragged away, or worse, something watching us from the darkness. My stomach twisted. Something was wrong. Something unnatural was out here, and it had Ryan. "Daddy, I want to go home," Maya whispered. "I know, baby," I said, though I knew home would never feel safe again. Not until Ryan was back in my arms. Not until I knew he was alive. I screamed his name one more time, my voice breaking into hoarse, ragged sobs. And then silence. Not peaceful silence, not quiet, the kind of silence that waits, that watches, that knows what you fear the most and refuses to give it back. I took a deep breath, gripping Maya's hand tighter than ever.
"We'll find him," I said. My voice was firm, but I was lying. The forest had already stolen my confidence. The mist curled around us, thicker than ever, and I realized this was only the beginning. And somewhere, deep in the shadows, I could feel him. Not Ryan. Something else. Watching. Waiting. Smiling. The mist clung to my clothes like icy fingers, and the forest seemed to thicken around us, pressing in from all sides. Each step forward felt like wading through a dream I couldn't wake from. Maya's small hand trembled in mine, and I could feel her heartbeat racing as fast as my own. "Daddy, I think I saw him," she whispered, pointing to a shadow that shifted between the trees. I froze. My heart leapt, hope and fear colliding inside me. Where, sweetie?" I asked, but when I looked, there was nothing. Only the fog curling over roots and fallen leaves. The forest had a way of playing tricks on the eyes. Shadows moved where there shouldn't have been shadows. Trees leaned unnaturally, like they were watching. I called Ryan's name again, my voice raw, echoing into the dense trees. "Ryan! Ryan, where are you?" My shouts bounced off the trunks, fading into the silence. The forest swallowed every sound, giving nothing back. Then I heard it, a soft, familiar giggle. Ryan's laugh? Or something mimicking it? I couldn't tell. My mind screamed at me to follow it, to run, but reason struggled to hold on. The laughter echoed, moving further away, always just out of reach. I stumbled over a fallen branch, grabbing Maya to keep her from falling. "Stay close to me," I yelled. She nodded silently, her wide eyes fixed on me, trusting me completely, even as fear wrapped around her like a living thing. The sun had vanished, and the forest was now bathed in a gray-black darkness. My flashlight was useless. The mist absorbed the beam, turning everything into a swirling haze. Every step I took sounded louder than it should. Every snap of a twig behind me made me spin around, heart in my throat. And then I saw something that made my blood run cold. A figure, or what I thought was a figure, darted between the trees, a fleeting shadow. I ran toward it, calling Ryan's name, and the shadow vanished. The forest had no end, no clear path, only endless trunks and mist that seemed alive. "Daddy, I'm scared," Maya whispered, burying her face into my chest. "I know, baby, I know. But we'll find him, I promise." Hours passed, though time felt meaningless. My legs ached, my lungs burned, and my voice was shredded from shouting. Yet the forest didn't tire. It seemed to breathe with us, to stretch and move, keeping Ryan always just out of reach. And then I heard the whispers. Low, guttural, just beyond the reach of understanding. They weren't the wind. They weren't birds. They were voices, faint, yet unmistakably real. One seemed to call Ryan's name. Another mimicked my own, twisting it, turning my calls into mockery. I wanted to turn back, to run, but I couldn't, not until I found him. The forest had taken my child, and I was its prey now. Every instinct screamed danger, yet I pushed forward, gripping Maya's hand tighter than ever. Then suddenly,
I saw him. Or, at least, I thought I did. A small figure crouched behind a tree, waving. "Ryan!" I shouted. My heart soared. "I've got you!" But when I reached the spot, nothing. Just an empty forest floor, damp leaves, and the oppressive mist curling around me. I stumbled, choking back sobs. My mind screamed, my body shook, and I realized I couldn't even trust my eyes here. The forest was changing me, making me see what I wanted and feared most of all. I sank to my knees, holding Maya close, tears burning my eyes. "We have to keep going," I whispered to her, but inside I was breaking. The forest had taken Ryan, and I didn't know if it would ever give him back. Somewhere deeper in the darkness, I felt him, not alive, not as my son, but present, watching, waiting. And I knew, with a cold certainty, that the forest had its own rules, rules I could not understand, rules I could not defy. I stood, wiping my face, and forced myself forward. The forest was endless, the mist never stopped. And Ryan was still out there, somewhere between the shadows and the silence, waiting for me to find him before it was too late.
The forest seemed to breathe around us. Every step I took, every whisper of wind, every rustle of leaves felt deliberate, as if the trees themselves were alive and watching. My legs ached, my lungs burned, but I couldn't stop. I couldn't leave Ryan out here alone. Maya's small hand remained clutched in mine. She was exhausted, her face pale under the faint light seeping through the mist. "Daddy, I don't like it here," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I know, baby. I know, but we have to find Ryan," I said, forcing confidence into my voice I didn't feel. The mist thickened, curling around our feet like living smoke. Shadows shifted unnaturally, and I kept thinking I saw figures darting just beyond my vision. I called out Ryan's name again, my voice raw from shouting. "Ryan! Ryan! Where are you?" No answer. Only the forest responded, groaning with the weight of silence. Then I heard it. A soft, dragging sound, like something heavy moving over wet leaves. I froze. "Ryan!" My voice shook. The sound came again, closer this time, but there was no child, no figure, only the mist swirling and twisting. I gripped Maya tightly and whispered, "Stay close to me, okay?" She nodded silently, too scared to speak. The darkness pressed in. My flashlight flickered once, twice, then went out entirely. Panic clawed at me, but I forced myself to stay calm. I had to keep moving. I had to find him. Every few steps, I saw movement, a shadow here, a flicker there, but when I turned, nothing. The forest had become a labyrinth of uncertainty, and my mind began to betray me. I started imagining things, Ryan's laughter echoing, ghostly figures watching, the mist forming shapes that looked almost human. Then I heard a whisper, soft, almost delicate, coming from deeper in the trees. "Daddy." I froze. My heart skipped. Could it be Ryan? I called out again, my voice desperate. "Ryan, is that you?" No reply, only the whisper repeating, faint and broken. My stomach twisted. The voice wasn't entirely Ryan's. It was distorted, almost like it was mocking me. The forest had changed him, or maybe it had always been something else, something pretending to be him. I pushed forward. My feet slipped over roots and mud, my body trembling, every muscle screaming to stop. But I couldn't. Not yet.
A sudden movement caught my eye. A figure crouched behind a tree, too far to see clearly. "Ryan!" I shouted, my voice cracked, my throat burning. I ran toward the figure, hope flooding me. But when I reached the spot, it was empty. Nothing but dark earth and mist. The forest laughed silently. I sank to my knees, gripping Maya and sobbing. "We'll find him," I whispered to her, though I wasn't sure if it was true. Hours, or maybe minutes, passed. The darkness deepened. Strange noises filled the forest. Twigs snapping, leaves rustling, distant whispers. The mist thickened to the point where I could barely see my own hand in front of my face. And then I felt it. Something was following us. Not human, not animal, something else. A presence that made the hairs on my arms stand up. A cold that wasn't just from the night air. It moved in silence, patient and deliberate, always just behind us, never showing itself fully. I wanted to run. I wanted to flee and never look back. But Ryan was out there, somewhere. My son, my responsibility. And I couldn't abandon him to whatever was waiting in this cursed forest. The forest had taken him once, and now I knew it would not let go.
Night had fallen completely, swallowing the forest in a blanket of darkness so thick it felt almost tangible. The mist clung to everything, weaving through the trees like ghostly threads. My flashlight was useless. Its beam barely penetrated the swirling gray, and the batteries were dying fast. Maya's small hand was ice cold in mine. Her breathing was shallow, scared, yet obedient. She hadn't cried for a long time, not since we realized Ryan wasn't just hiding, he was lost. And I could feel it. The forest was watching, breathing, waiting. "Daddy, I want to go home," she whispered, her voice trembling. I swallowed hard, forcing a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "I know, baby. I know. But we have to keep going. We have to find Ryan." The forest responded with silence, but it wasn't comforting. It was thick, heavy, almost alive. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig sounded deliberate, as if something was moving just out of reach, tracking us. Shadows shifted in impossible ways, and I began to feel that I wasn't alone. Hours, or maybe minutes, passed. My voice was gone from shouting, my throat raw and burning. Every instinct screamed to turn back, to escape, but I couldn't leave Ryan out here. My son was lost somewhere in this nightmare, and the forest would not give him up willingly. Then I saw a flash of movement, something small darting between the trees. My heart leapt. "Ryan?" I shouted. My legs moved before my brain could think, charging toward the shadow. But when I reached it, nothing. Only the thick mist and twisted trees. I sank to my knees, gripping Maya, tears streaming down my face. "We'll find him, I promise," I whispered, even though I couldn't be sure I meant it. The forest seemed to close in around us. Twigs snapped behind me, leaves rustled where no wind blew, and then I heard it, a whisper, low and guttural, coming from somewhere deep in the darkness. "Ryan." It wasn't Ryan, not really, but it sounded like him, distorted, broken, mocking. My stomach churned. Something was imitating him, trying to draw me deeper. But I couldn't resist. I couldn't stop. I pressed forward, my body trembling, my mind on the edge of breaking. Every step I took was guided by hope, fear, and guilt. I remembered letting him run ahead earlier in the day, thinking he was safe. That mistake now felt like it could never be forgiven. A branch snapped sharply to my left. I spun around, flashlight flickering, and for a fleeting moment I saw a figure crouched in the mist, small, familiar, waving. "Ryan!" I ran toward it, but again, nothing. Only the thick mist and twisted trees. Maya clung to me tightly. "Daddy, I'm scared," she whispered. "I know, baby, I know," I said, trying to convince both her and myself. My mind kept returning to the moment I first realized he was gone. The toy car crushed beneath the wet leaves. That image haunted me, followed me through every shadow. Then, from somewhere deeper in the forest, a sound that made my blood run cold. Soft, deliberate footsteps following us. Not human footsteps, something larger, something patient, waiting, watching. I froze, held Maya close. "Stay behind me," I whispered, and for the first time I understood the truth about this forest. It didn't just hide Ryan, it toyed with me, it tested me, and it would not let us leave until it had claimed something more, something permanent. I took a deep breath, clenching Maya's hand until my knuckles hurt. We will keep going. I had to find him. Somewhere in the endless, dark, whispering trees, Ryan was still out there, and I would not stop until I brought him back, or the forest took me too. The footsteps behind us grew clearer, slow, deliberate, crushing damp leaves with a weight that didn't belong to any human. I held Maya against me, her face buried in my chest. Her tiny body trembled as the sound came closer. Crunch, crunch, crunch.
Each step felt like it pressed directly on my spine. The mist parted slightly, just enough for me to see a shifting shadow, tall, hunched, moving with unnatural slowness, as if savoring every moment of our fear. I forced myself backward until my back hit a tree trunk. My breathing was shallow, loud, too loud. Maya whimpered softly. "Daddy, it's behind us," she whispered, voice barely audible. "I know," I breathed, trying desperately not to shake. I didn't dare call Ryan's name anymore. Not now, not with this thing listening. The footsteps stopped. Silence washed over us, thick and suffocating. My heart hammered in my ears. I tightened my arms around Maya, bracing for whatever was coming. Then, from the darkness, a voice emerged. A small, trembling voice. "Daddy, help." Ryan. My heart lurched. It was him. It had to be him. The exact tone, the exact fear. "Ryan! Ryan, where are you?" I shouted before reason could catch up to me. Maya tugged at my shirt with frantic urgency. "Daddy, no, don't go. That's not him." But I was already stumbling forward, blinded by hope. The voice echoed again, closer this time, but twisted, like someone trying to speak through a broken throat. "Dad? Daddy?" The sound made my skin crawl. This wasn't right. Ryan never spoke like that. Something was imitating him. Again. I stopped dead in my tracks. The mist parted for a brief second, revealing a silhouette. Small, child-sized, standing completely still between two ancient trees. My breath caught. Ryan? The figure tilted its head in a jerky, unnatural motion, too fast, too sharp. Its limbs were wrong, too long, too thin. My entire body froze, and then, from behind me, crunch. I spun around, flashlight shaking violently. Something massive slipped between the trees with impossible silence, only its shadow visible through the fog. Elongated limbs, a hunched back, eyes. God, I could feel its eyes boring into me. Maya screamed, burying her face into my chest. I grabbed her and ran. Branches tore at my clothes. Roots clawed at my feet. The forest twisted around us as if the trees themselves shifted to keep us from escaping. Behind us, the footsteps resumed, but faster now. Hungry, delighted. Crunch, crunch, crunch. "Daddy, faster, it's coming!" Maya sobbed. My lungs burned. I stumbled, nearly falling onto the wet earth, but Maya pulled me upright with surprising strength. Ahead, the faint outline of something familiar broke through the mist. A wooden structure. Small, broken, leaning. A hunting shack. I didn't think. I sprinted toward it, dragging Maya behind me. We reached it just as the footsteps thundered from the trees, closer than ever. I shoved the door open. It nearly fell off its hinges and pulled Maya inside. The shack smelled of mold, dirt, and something rotten, but it had 4 walls, a door, a roof. I slammed the door shut and pressed my back against it, shaking violently. Outside, the footsteps stopped. Silence again. Worse than before. My heart hammered in my ears. I tightened my arms around Maya, bracing for whatever was coming. Then, something scraped against the wooden door. A single, long drag of claws or nails or something else, slowly carving across the surface. Scrap. The sound crawled along my spine like ice. Then the voice came again. Closer. Right at the door. "Daddy, let me in." My blood froze. That was Ryan's voice. But not Ryan. Never Ryan. Maya squeezed her eyes shut, pressing her hands over her ears. "Daddy, don't open it, please." I held the doorknob tight, even though every instinct screamed to run. Run where? The forest had trapped us. It would play with us until it got what it wanted. The scraping stopped. A single tap echoed on the door. Tap, tap, tap. And then a whisper, so soft it barely existed. "They always come home, eventually." And the presence outside faded into the mist. But I knew this wasn't over. Not even close. Somewhere in that forest, my son was still calling for me. Or something wearing his voice was waiting for me to answer.
The shack had gone silent. Maya's small body was curled against my chest, and I kept my hand over her head trying to calm her, yet it was my hand that shook the most. Outside, whatever had been standing at our door had gone quiet. Not gone, just quiet. I knew one thing for certain. Ryan wasn't out there, and whatever used his voice wasn't my son. In that suffocating stillness, a truth hit me like ice. If we stayed here, both Maya and I would die. Maya's fingers clutched my shirt. "Daddy, I want to go home, please." Her little voice cracked something inside me. I pressed my ear to the door. Nothing. A dead, heavy silence. Not peaceful. The silence a predator makes when it's waiting. I whispered to Maya. No sound. Then, slowly, I unlatched the door just enough to peek outside. The mist was thick, almost alive. The trees stood still, like they were holding their breath. Whatever that thing was, I didn't see it. This was our only chance. "Maya," I whispered, voice shaking, "we're running. Don't look back."
I lifted her into my arms and ran. My steps were as quiet as I could make them, but the forest floor betrayed me with every crunch of leaves. And then, crunch, crunch, crunch. It had noticed, but the footsteps were faster now, hungry, closing in. Maya sobbed, "Daddy, run faster! It's coming!" "I know. Don't look back." A guttural, distorted growl echoed from behind us. Not human, not animal. Something in between. At one point, I felt cold fingers brush my shoulder. I almost fell. Maya screamed, "Daddy, don't stop!" Then, a light, a faint glow ahead through the fog. A road. The edge of the forest. I sprinted like my life depended on it because it did. And as we broke through the last line of trees collapsing onto the gravel road, I saw it. The thing. Standing at the forest's boundary. Tall. Wrong. Two glowing red eyes burning through the mist. But it didn't step out of the woods, not an inch, as if the forest was its cage or its kingdom. And in the faint morning light, it spoke. "Daddy, you left me," in Ryan's exact voice. But not Ryan. Not my boy. I grabbed Maya and didn't look back again. We were alive, but not whole. A few moments later, the morning light slowly filtered through the branches, thin and cold. The birds chirped as if the night had never been filled with monsters. I held Maya's hand tightly and stepped through the last stretch of trees. Suddenly, we were out. The forest ended abruptly, leaving us on a quiet road that led straight to our home. We didn't stop. We didn't speak. We just walked, broken, exhausted, trembling, until we reached home. Home. Around 6 a.m., we finally reached our porch. The moment our feet touched the steps, the front door flew open. Maria rushed out, eyes wide open with fear. "Where have you been? Why didn't you call? Where's Ryan?" Her voice cracked as if something inside her was breaking. Before I could answer, Maya broke down crying. "Mommy, we lost Ryan. The forest took him." Maria screamed and fell to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. I sat beside her and held her, even though my own body trembled so violently I could barely stay upright. "We need to call the police," I whispered. And we did.
The police arrive. Once daylight spread fully across the street, 3 police units arrived. They sat me down and politely asked, "Sir, can you tell us exactly what happened?" I wanted to tell them the truth, that something in the forest was imitating my son's voice, that something tried to hunt us, that something stood among the trees, its eyes burning like embers, staring at me. But I stayed silent. Nobody would believe it. Even if I told them, they probably wouldn't have searched. So I only told them the moment Ryan disappeared. My daughter and I went into the forest to enjoy its beauty. Ryan was running with us, spotting birds, finding joy in flowers and leaves. But suddenly, he vanished. We searched for him, but we couldn't find him. That was all. No monsters, no voices, no eyes. Just a lost child. The police searched all day. Drones, helicopters, forest rangers, tracking dogs. But they found nothing. No footprints, no torn clothes, no signs of struggle, no evidence that Ryan had ever been in that forest. It was as if he had simply vanished from existence. Ryan never came home. No one found anything. Not a clue, not a trace, not a single answer. People whispered theories. He was kidnapped. He wandered too far. He probably ran away. His father was careless.
But deep down, I knew the truth. I couldn't fully explain it to my wife that day. She still hopes, still thinks our son might return. At night, when the wind scratches against the window frame, sometimes I still hear it. "Daddy, let me in." And in that moment, I know. He didn't disappear. Something took him. Something that wears voices like masks. Something that waits in the forest. We made it home that night. He didn't.
Friends, I don't know how this heartbreaking story made you feel. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you can hear more terrifying stories in the future. Until then, stay well, stay healthy, stay safe. See you in the next video.